Looks like we're in for some very cold air coming in later this week. It could be the coldest air of the year coming in later this week, about Thursday or Friday. So
we'll be dipping below zero.
We better get primed up for that, I think.
All righty. Okay, thanks, Brad. That's the news as of 7 o'clock.
We'll be back in 25 minutes with another report.
This is 5TV.
I'm Barbara Lewis from New York City. Good morning, America.
All right. Waking us up there. Good morning. I'm Joan Lunden. It is Tuesday, January 20th.
And I'm Charlie Gibson, up here for David Hartman, who was on assignment. He's down interviewing his hero, Ted Williams, an interview that you're going to see on Thursday. And lots of stuff going on overnight. You may remember about a year ago the tragic shooting of the Swedish Prime Minister, Olof Palme. There has been a break in that case, and in the news, Judd Rose will have details in just a few moments.
Also coming up in this half hour, several times in recent months there have been rumors of a coup attempt in the Philippines designed to overthrow the government of Corazon Aquino. There's been no attempted coup so far, but when those rumors arise, the name most often mentioned as being involved in is Mrs. Aquino's former defense minister, Juan Enrile, and he is going to be with us this morning to talk about the stability of the Aquino government. Also, James Garner is just one celebrity in a new series of commercials telling us to eat more beef.
I fixed that. I don't put vegetables on my beef kebabs.
We will find out why that advertising campaign has become so very controversial.
And also this morning, there's lots of other stuff. Vanessa Williams, the former Miss America, will introduce us to her brand new husband. Edward Woodward will tell us why his show, The Equalizer, is such a big hit. We're going to continue this morning our special series on women and the law and talk also about crystal therapy, an idea that little rocks can make you feel better. I don't know about that, but we'll talk about it, plus a look at the Oral Roberts fundraising controversy.
All that. But before all that, right now, Judd Rose has the news for us at a minute after. Good morning, Judd.
Good morning, Joan, Charlie.
Hi,
Good morning, everybody. 3 men linked to a Kurdish extremist group are being held in Sweden in connection with the murder of Sweden's Prime Minister Olof Palme. It's been nearly a year since Palme was shot to death, and this appears to be the biggest break yet in what has been a very long investigation. Mike Lee reports.
This Stockholm police station was this morning heavily guarded, following the announcement that 3 Kurdish extremists have been arrested on suspicion of plotting the Palme murder. It's not known if one of those arrested is suspected of actually being the trigger man. Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme was shot in the back by a lone gunman as he approached this spot on a Stockholm street. He'd been walking unguarded with his wife last February 28th. The 3 suspects, now under arrest, are said to belong to the PKK, a Kurdish guerrilla group which has long been fighting for an independent Kurdish homeland in Turkey. In 1984, the Palme regime declared the PKK to be a terrorist group. Many Kurds living in Sweden were restricted in their movements, and the Swedish government opposed efforts by the PKK for political asylum and logistical support. However, the Kurdish organization has repeatedly denied any involvement in the Palme murder. Swedish police have promised more details of their investigation later today. Mike Lee, ABC News, London.
Hostage negotiator Terry Wade has decided to extend his stay in Beirut after meeting last night with Shiite Muslims holding U.S. hostages. Wade says he has assurances that Americans Thomas Sutherland and Terry Anderson are well looked after. And in West Germany, authorities now say there's a connection between a West German kidnapped Sunday in Beirut and the arrest in West Germany of Mohammed Ali Hamadi, who is believed to be one of the TWA 847 hijackers. And U.S. embassies abroad reportedly are on alert against terrorist attacks because of Hamadi's impending extradition to the United States. In the Persian Gulf, Iran now says it's closing in on Basra, Iraq's second largest city. If Basra is surrounded, experts believe Iraqi President Saddam Hussein could be overthrown. And it now looks as though President Reagan will agree to be interviewed by the Tower Commission, whose investigation of the National Security Council is focusing on the Iran-Contra scandal. Commission sources say only Mr. Reagan can answer some of the questions. And a powerful winter storm that has socked the Midwest and East has caused nearly 36 deaths and played havoc with traffic. Edie Magnus has details.
In Oklahoma, it's been the worst winter in decades. Drifts of up to 3 feet prompted scores of people to abandon their cars in a state not accustomed to heavy snow. Oklahoma City's Will Rogers World Airport reopened yesterday with only 1 runway operating after being closed down entirely for a day. The weather also played havoc with traffic across the Midwest. In Cleveland, snow slowed motorists to a near standstill. And in the Northeast, 5 inches of snow fell on Buffalo, New York. In Connecticut, this van with a man, his wife, and their 3 children plunged into the frigid waters of the East River. A passing motorist, aided by divers, pulled all 5 out, but tragically the woman later died. And overnight in New Jersey, there was a 19-car pileup on the Garden State Parkway, shutting it down for nearly 2 hours. 10 people were hurt and taken to area hospitals. Edie Magnus, ABC News.
Also this morning, if you're driving into New York City from Long Island, here is what you can expect. That's a live picture of the unusually heavy Manhattan-bound traffic on the Long Island Expressway. The reason for the extra delay, day 3 of a strike at the Long Island Railroad, which serves more than 110,000 commuters daily. That looks like quite a mess. The dollar is rebounding somewhat on foreign currency markets. Dollar's unchanged against the Japanese yen. In Europe, the dollar is up against the West German mark, the French franc, and the British pound. In London, the morning gold fixing was down $5 an ounce from yesterday's close in New York. And Goodyear has gotten quite a response to a buyback offer. Stephen Ogg has details in this morning's economic report.
Good morning. Stockholders at Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company have way oversubscribed to its offer to buy back 40 million shares at $50 a share. They've offered 85 million, or 87% of all the Goodyear stock outstanding. The result, of course, is that Goodyear will buy back a bit less than half of what's been offered. The offer is Goodyear's response to British takeover artist Sir James Goldsmith, who wanted to buy the whole company for $49 a share. But 2 months ago, Goodyear bought back his 12.5 million shares for $49.50. Then it made its own offer to the other stockholders. To finance the $2.5 billion this is costing, Goodyear's breaking up the company, selling off its oil and gas, aerospace, and some other divisions to concentrate on tires. On Wall Street, Goodyear closed up nearly $1. Apparently, investors feel concentrating on tires isn't so bad after all. Otherwise, prices open against the 12th straight daily rise in the Dow this year, and it closed yesterday above 2,100 for the first time. Finally, the end of an era. For the first time since it was founded in 1913, Moore McCormick's going to be out of the shipping business. The company sold its cargo liner business 4 years ago. Now it's selling its bulk shipping and tanker business. Shipping isn't the business it once was, what with worldwide overcapacity. And Moore McCormick these days is big in building materials, a major producer of cement and concrete. And they'll concentrate on building materials once the shipping sale is set in concrete. The economy this morning.
Taking a look ahead at some of the events coming up on today's news calendar, 45 Senate Republicans vote on who will be their ranking member on the Foreign Relations Committee. Richard Lugar was the committee chairman, and he's being challenged by the more conservative Jesse Helms. A Senate subcommittee begins hearings today on train safety, spurred by the Amtrak Conrail accident near Baltimore that killed 16 people. And comedian George Burns is 91 years young today. Burns plans to play cards in the afternoon, then date a beautiful woman tonight. Same plans I have. And this evening on World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, a report on how monkeys are being used to help quadriplegics. Across the U.S., Americans spent yesterday paying tribute to Martin Luther King. In dozens of cities, bells tolled simultaneously to sound the theme of Let Freedom Ring. The largest of the nationwide celebrations took place in Atlanta. Also in Atlanta, King's widow, Coretta Scott King, presented the Nonviolent Peace Prize to Philippine President Corazon Aquino, whose sister-in-law accepted it. And the America's Cup finals are all set. It'll be Australia's Kookaburra 3 against Stars and Stripes from the U.S. Kookaburra 3 beat Australia 4 today, completing a 5-0 sweep in the Defender finals. The finals of the America's Cup begin on January 31st. That's the news at the top of the hour. Now back to New York. Joan Lunden and Spencer Christian.
Thank you, Judd.
Hey, Judd.
I don't know if we should talk to him today. It's pretty bad out there.
Nobody wants to be seen with me today because of the weather, right?
And of course, it's complicated here in New York because of a huge strike on the Long Island Railroad, which puts people under the road, and it was a little hairy coming in this morning.
Yes, it was. This is no time to be on the roadways around here. Everything's all iced over. You know, we didn't get a whole lot of snow yesterday, but we got a lot of sleet, icy road conditions, and that same situation prevails across the upper Midwest.
That's when it's all over?
Yeah, a large portion of the United States. Even though much of the precipitation has ended, we still have those treacherous road conditions. This dip in the jet stream shows you why we're having such a stormy weather pattern right now. These systems just sort of trek along the jet stream here and move on up in the northeast in that direction. Cold air spilling way down into the south central part of the country, picking up moisture here as these storms develop, and they just trek right on up in our direction, and that's why it's been so stormy. We're stuck in a dip down here, a dippy weather pattern. The outlook calls for the dippiness to end for a while today. Yesterday's storm has blown out to sea, but as I said, slippery roadways remain across much of the northeastern quadrant of the nation. Some light snow over the Great Lakes today. And here's another storm developing, 5 to 8 inches of additional snowfall likely today in the southern Rockies. And this system shows signs of following the same path as the storm that just hit the northeast yesterday. This could be another storm for the northeast by the end of the week. So we're still stuck in that wintry, stormy pattern. That's a quick look at the national weather picture. Here's what you can expect in your hometown area.
Good morning, everyone. This is Brad Edwards from the 5 TV Forecast Center, and we're in for a typical January day. It's going to be partly cloudy, breezy, and colder today. We'll have a high of 22 degrees, but it'll feel colder as winds will blow from the west at 10 to 20 miles per hour.
And we'll have more on today's weather in the next half hour. Charlie?
Thank you, Spencer. It's now 10 minutes after the hour. Once again, Corazon Aquino is campaigning in the Philippines. She is asking the Filipino people to approve a new constitution, and they'll vote on that in less than 2 weeks. Among other things, that constitution would keep Mrs. Aquino as the Philippine president for 5 more years. And there is a rather unusual coalition opposing it. The left wing is against it, and the right wing, supporters of former President Marcos, and Juan Enrile. He is the former defense minister who helped Mrs. Aquino gain power, but then was implicated in rumors of a coup against her and was fired. Mr. Enrile joins us now from Manila. Thank you for being with us this morning, and nice to see you. Mr. Enrile, a lot of people feel that your opposition to Mrs. Aquino is based on a personal political ambition. Do you think you'd make a better president of the Philippines than she is?
Well, that's not quite correct. No, I am doing what I'm doing now in accordance with our democratic tradition. And I think that you cannot have democracy in any country unless you have an opposition that would articulate the other side of the issue.
Are you saying you have Are you saying you have no personal political ambitions?
Well, I have no political plans.
None at all?
As of now, I have no political plans. My present activity is centered on discussing the proposed constitution of Mrs. Aquino before the people. In fact, I just came from the province in the north.
If that constitution which you oppose is voted down, would you then have political plans? Would you then get into the political fray and oppose Mrs. Aquino?
Well, it depends upon what the scenario would be at that time. If there's going to be an election then, I said before the people that if Mrs. Aquino will run for the presidency again and there's no better candidate, we might even support her.
All right, so that stays in abeyance. And that's the possibility if the Constitution is voted down. If the Constitution passes, it would call for Mrs. Aquino to serve 5 more years, correct?
That's correct.
Does she have the strength to serve out that 5-year term?
Well, the ratification of her constitution would mean that the people have spoken, and we must respect the will of the people if we want to be treated by the world as a democratic society. And we believe that we have a strong tradition in favor of democracy.
And you would fully support her being in authority as president for 5 more years?
Of course, we will have to respect her as our president. And by so respecting her as our president, we in fact respect the will of the people. But respecting her as a president does not mean that we will not speak out as oppositionists in order that issues will be ventilated and the people will know both sides of any given political, economic, or social issue that may be presented before them.
On the David Brinkley show this past Sunday, you said, and I think rather unequivocally, that you oppose any coup against Mrs. Aquino, correct?
No, what I said is that I have nothing to do with any coup or any planned coup. I'm no longer in government and I have no intention of participating in one.
And you would oppose any coup?
That revolution in February, We handed the powers of government to civilian group headed by Mrs. Aquino. Why should I now undertake a problem like that?
And you would oppose any coup?
If I have the means to do so, I will do so.
But you have followers in the military. Have you told them unequivocally, therefore, that you oppose any coup and support the maintenance in power of Mrs. Aquino?
Well, that is the perception of people, but I have lost contact with the people who are perceived to be my followers. I have not had contacts with them.
Have you talked with former President Marcos anytime recently?
No, I haven't had any contact with the former president since the 28th of February last year.
He opposes the Constitution, as do you. And there's a certain irony in that, given the fact that you were so instrumental in bringing down his government. Do you feel uncomfortable being on the same side of this issue now with former President Marcos and opposing the Constitution?
Well, I do not choose people who are on my side. If President Marcos has his own reason to oppose the Constitution, so be it. And so are the members of the communist movement. They are also opposing this Constitution. Many Protestant Christians are opposing the Constitution. Even some people in the military are opposing the Constitution for their own reasons. We oppose the Constitution based on our own reasons. And that is just a matter of accident that we are on the same side of this issue.
Juan Ponce Enrile, thank you ever so much for joining us this morning. You're nice to be with us.
Thank you very much, too, for giving me an opportunity to be heard by your public.
Good to see you. Now, 15 minutes after the hour, and we'll be back in a moment to see why some people are beefing about some new commercials. That after this.
Fresh eggs, 2 strips of bacon or sausage, and 3 of the best pancakes you've ever tasted. Add up to the magnificent 7 breakfast, specially priced, only at Perkins Family Restaurants.
I used to be a lousy cook until I got a hold of Heinz 57 sauce. It's more than a great steak sauce. On the back of these bottles is my entire recipe collection. Great American meatloaf, sweet and sour pork chops. This is tangy chicken. Heinz 57 gives it a tangy flavor you can't get from any other sauce. With Heinz 57, even I can be a culinary success. Try Heinz 57 sauce. It's more than a steak sauce, a heck of a lot more.
You're invited to a decorator's dream, Newton Furniture's 12 months free interest sale. Traditional and contemporary fine furniture have been a specialty of Newton Furniture for generations. During January, Newton Furniture is offering substantial savings, along with 12 months free interest on one of Iowa's larger collections of finer quality home furnishings. Thomasville, Highland House of Hickory, and Flex Steel, all with special January savings to brighten your home. Take I-80 exit 168 east into Newton Furniture on Highway 6.
Some people cover their mouth when they speak or laugh. Some are afraid to smile. Others try to hide their profile. I'm Dr. Joyce Feathers, and as a psychologist, I know that self-consciousness greatly affects mental attitude and self-esteem. This is especially true when people are self-conscious about the appearance of their mouth and teeth. So I've often suggested they see an orthodontist, not only because they'll look better, but because they'll feel better. I know. I've been to an orthodontist myself. It is 18 minutes after. Back in 1976, the average American ate 94 pounds of beef. In 1985, the average American ate only 79 pounds. Nowadays, Americans are eating almost as much poultry as beef. And in the face of this, the Beef Industry Council has launched a new $29 million advertising campaign, both in newspapers and on television.
Sometimes I wonder if people have a primal, instinctive craving for hamburgers. Something hot, juicy, and so utterly simple that you can eat it with your hands. You can eat it with your hands. I mean, I know people who don't eat burgers, but I'm not sure I trust them.
John Francis is Vice President of Beef Marketing of the Beef Industry Council. Gail Levey is the registered dietitian and media liaison for the American Dietetic Association. And we welcome both of you.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right. We have really cut back on our beef consumption. How is this campaign likely to change people's minds?
Consumption has been flat for the last 6 years, and our focus isn't so much to increase consumption. We want to get some demand back. Cattle production is not profitable today, and this is a campaign by producers to return profitability to their industry. So consumption, increased consumption isn't per se our focus. Our focus is to bring beef back. We see a return to basics trends, a return to real food, and we think what's more real than beef?
Okay, real food. Sick 'em.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
You really
I'll
have
tell
a
you
problem
something,
with
Joan. I have a very big problem with those ads because that advertisement really offends me. It offends me personally because, as a colleague put it, it uses raw meat to sell real meat. And it offends me professionally because that slogan, beef, real food for real people, somehow says there's something superior about beef, that it's better than other foods, when in fact health experts, registered dietitians among them, are telling people to eat low-fat, high-carbohydrate diets. Now, with beef, the number one contributor of fat in the diet, at current consumption levels, that slogan is a little bit hard to swallow.
All right. Some of the newspaper ads get a little bit more specific than the television ads. How do you feel about them? They get into the idea of the polyunsaturated fats and the cholesterol and all this.
Well, I think one of the things that really struck me and made me uncomfortable in the ads is the thought that they continually refer to a 3-ounce portion. Now, we have a 3-ounce portion of beef over there. We have an orange there for
this is a 3-ounce portion, which is what they're talking about. And I think most people would probably eat more than this at a sitting.
In fact, the government surveys again would tell you that most people are eating about twice that beef, twice that amount of beef. And so with beef already being a big contributor of fat, well, it'd be nice if people could cut back to that level. That's not how they're eating. And in fact, the ad that we just saw with Sybil Shepherd, that burger that she's about to sink her teeth into is far more than 3 ounces.
Go ahead, John.
One thing I like about that serving, you don't see any fat there. And we think that's where the future is. Sybil is about to enjoy a 3-ounce burger. All the portions you see in our commercials are 3-ounce servings of cooked trim beef. We think our future is in the red stuff and not the white. We have heard from consumers we don't want to produce fat. We want them to enjoy the red stuff and not the white. And that's why you see in our print ad, for example, a focus on 6 under 200 calorie cuts, calling to their attention the fat content, the saturated fat content. We want consumers to know, and that's what we show with them in the ad.
Before we even get into the details, the polyunsaturated and all that, I think Gail's problem with this is that they don't read the fine print. They're going to read this and they're going to see that they're going to think that we're talking about the amount of meat that they normally eat, when in fact they would never actually plan to put this much on their plate.
As a matter of fact, a 3-ounce serving, I mean, think in terms of a quarter pounder. It's about three or four slices of Lunden broil. It's a small steak. If you get a large steak, share it with somebody. We support the notion of 2 servings in the meat group. As a matter of fact, we think the opportunity for the beef industry is increasing frequency of consumption of smaller portions. We want to be consistent with the nutrition community. That's why we're making that recommendation. We think it's right and agree with the nutrition community.
We're almost out of time. Gail, go ahead.
But except at the levels we're eating now, you know, if everybody cut back to 3-ounce portions, the beef industry would be even in more trouble than it is now, because again, the typical portion now is 5 to 6 ounces. Another point,
2.5 ounces of beef a day.
Another point is in those ads, there's a lot more saturated fat than those ads let you to believe. If you eat chicken instead, you're getting a third of the fat and a third of the saturated fat.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
For everybody who loves waltzes, here is the famous orchestra whose waltz records became giant hits all over America.